My mother-in-law accidentally poured a full glass of red wine on my wedding dress just moments before I walked down the aisle. She thought she'd won. She didn't know that 3 hours later at the reception, 200 guests would be watching a slow-motion replay of her confessing her entire plan on a 10-foot screen. But to understand the sheer, unadulterated satisfaction of that moment, you first need to understand the year of subtle psychological warfare that led up to it. You need to understand my relationship, or lack thereof, with Carol, my husband Liam's mother. From the moment Liam slipped that beautiful ring on my finger, I was apparently no longer Chloe, the woman he loved. I was the intruder, the one who wasn't good enough. Carol was a master of the backhanded compliment, the concerned tone that dripped with condescension. When Liam announced our engagement to her, her response wasn't a hug or congratulations. It was a long, slow look at me, up and down, followed by a tight smile and the words, "Well, Liam, if she makes you happy, I suppose that's what matters." The unspoken second half of that sentence, even though I can't possibly imagine why, hung in the air between us. Liam, bless his heart, always saw the best in people, especially his mother. "She's just protective, Chloe," he'd say. "She'll warm up to you." But her idea of warming up was a masterclass in passive aggression that defined our entire wedding planning process. Take dress shopping. I'd invited my mom, my two best friends, and out of a misguided sense of obligation, Carol. It was a mistake. For every dress I loved, Carol had a criticism disguised as a concern. On a beautiful A-line dress, she remarked, "It's lovely, but don't you think the neckline is a bit revealing for a church wedding? You wouldn't want to give people the wrong impression." On a stunning lace mermaid gown, she mused, "That much lace can look quite cheap if it's not the absolute highest quality. It's a fine line." She'd touch the fabrics with a look of distaste, as if she were handling a dish rag. I finally found the one. An elegant, timeless satin gown. It was perfect. I cried, my mom cried, my friends cheered. Carol just stood back, arms crossed, and said, "It's very white." Then there was the venue. Liam and I fell in love with a beautiful old winery with rolling hills and a rustic, charming barn for the reception. Carol's suggestion had been the sterile beige ballroom at her country club. When we told her we'd booked the winery, her response was a theatrical sigh. "Oh, a vineyard. How quaint," she'd said. "I just hope your older guests don't mind the uneven ground, and the bugs, of course. Let's hope it doesn't rain." She had a way of making our dream sound like a poorly planned camping trip. It was death by 1,000 cuts. She questioned our guest list. "Do you really need to invite all your college friends?" Criticized our menu choices. "A taco bar? How casual." And constantly tried to guilt Liam into siding with her. "I just worry that Chloe isn't thinking about the comfort of our family," she'd tell him on the phone, knowing I was in the room. Each time Liam would play peacemaker. "Mom means well, honey. That's just how she is. Don't let her get to you." I loved him so much, but I started to feel incredibly alone in this battle I never even wanted to fight. Which brings us to the wedding day. Despite everything, I was determined to be happy. The sun was shining, my bridesmaids were incredible, and I was about to marry the man I adored. The atmosphere in the bridal suite was electric with joy and hairspray. My best friend and maid of honor, Jess, was buzzing around with a small camera. Her wedding gift to us was a behind-the-scenes video diary of the day, capturing all the candid, unscripted moments. A detail that would soon become the single most important element of my entire wedding. I was finally in my dress, that very white satin gown, and I felt beautiful, truly beautiful. The fabric shimmered, the fit was perfect, and for a moment, all of Carol's negativity melted away. This was my day. My mom had just finished helping with my veil, her eyes misty, when the door creaked open.
It was Carol. She was dressed to the nines, a vision in beige, a color she often chose because it was understated. In her hand, she held a crystal glass, filled to the brim with dark red wine. "Just a little something to calm the nerves," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She moved through the room, complimenting my bridesmaids, her voice sickly sweet. Jess, bless her, kept the camera rolling, thinking this was a lovely mother-in-law and bride moment. Carol stopped in front of me, her gaze sweeping over my dress. "Oh, Chloe," she cooed, "you look like a picture. Truly. I must have a hug." My gut screamed no. A tiny alarm bell went off in my head. A full glass of red wine and a pristine white dress? But what could I do? Rejecting a hug from my mother-in-law in front of everyone? I'd be the bad guy. So I smiled and leaned in for a brief, stiff embrace. And that's when it happened. As she pulled back, she made a small theatrical oops sound, her arms jerking as if she'd lost her balance. It all happened in slow motion. The wine glass tipped, and the dark crimson liquid arced through the air, landing with a horrifying splash right on the front of my bodice and cascading down the skirt. A collective gasp filled the room. For a split second there was dead silence as the dark stain spread, a grotesque, bleeding flower on the pure white satin. Then Carol's performance began. "Oh, my heavens!" she shrieked, pressing a hand to her chest. "Oh, my clumsy, clumsy self. Chloe, my dear girl, I am so terribly sorry. My hands, they just tremble when I'm emotional." My mom and bridesmaids rushed forward with soda water and napkins, a frantic, useless effort. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at Carol. And through her performance of utter shock and horror, I saw it, a flicker, a tiny, triumphant glint in her eyes that lasted for less than a second before it was gone, replaced by a mask of Oscar-worthy distress. But I saw it, and I knew this was no accident. This was a declaration of war. My heart shattered, not because of the dress, not really. It was the sheer malice of it. To do this on my wedding day, moments before I walked down the aisle, was a level of cruelty I couldn't comprehend. Tears welled in my eyes, hot with despair and rage. My wedding was in less than an hour. I was looking at my ruined dress in the mirror, the smell of wine hanging in the air like a bitter perfume, and I had to somehow walk down that aisle, smile, and pretend that my new mother-in-law hadn't just tried to metaphorically stab me in the heart. At that moment, I felt completely and utterly defeated. I had no proof, no recourse, just a stained dress and a heart full of helpless anger. Little did I know, my proof was being safely stored on a tiny memory card in Jess's camera. The world seemed to warp into slow motion. The red wine, a dark, venomous entity, seeped into the fibers of my satin dress, killing the pristine white with a sickening finality. My mother's gasp, my bridesmaids' horrified shrieks, it all sounded like it was coming from underwater. The only thing that felt real and sharp was the triumphant, fleeting glint I'd seen in my mother-in-law Carol's eyes. It was a look that said, "Checkmate." And in that moment, standing there soaked in wine and humiliation, I truly believed she had won. Carol's performance was breathtaking. She fussed and fluttered, dabbing at the stain with a napkin, which only seemed to smear the crimson into a wider, more grotesque patch. "Oh, my poor shaky hands. Oh, this is all my fault. Chloe, my dear girl, I am so terribly sorry. My hands, they just tremble when I'm emotional." My mom, bless her heart, was trying to be practical, a general in a crisis. "Get soda water, salt. Does anyone have white chalk? Hurry." My bridesmaids scrambled, a flurry of panicked activity. They were trying to save the dress, but I knew it was hopeless. What they were really trying to save was my wedding day, a day that now felt as stained and ruined as the dress itself.
I felt a phantom vibration in my pocket and managed to pull out my phone. It was Liam, of course, probably wondering what the holdup was. I numbly answered, stepping into the small adjoining bathroom for a sliver of privacy. "Hey, you okay? You were supposed to be walking down in 5 minutes," he said, his voice brimming with happy anticipation, a sound that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. "Liam," I started, and my voice broke, a sob catching in my throat. "Whoa, hey, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is it just nerves?" "It's your mom," I whispered, tears now streaming silently down my face as I stared at my reflection, a parody of a bride. She spilled red wine all over my dress. It's ruined, Liam." There was a pause. "Oh, honey, no. The whole dress? The entire front of it." "Oh, God, okay, don't panic. Is your mom helping? Can it be fixed?" he asked, his voice full of genuine concern. But then he said the words I knew were coming, the words that would isolate me completely. "I'm so sorry, Chloe. Mom must feel absolutely terrible. She can be so clumsy sometimes." Clumsy? The word came out colder than I intended. "Liam, I don't think it was an accident." Another pause, this one longer, heavier. "Chloe, don't," he said, his tone shifting from concerned to weary. "Please don't do this, not today. I know you two have had your issues, but she would never do something like this on purpose. Ruin our wedding day? That's a crazy thing to say. She loves me. She wouldn't hurt me by hurting you like this." He wasn't hearing me. He was hearing an accusation against his mother. In his world, mothers didn't maliciously ruin their son's wedding day. In my world, I was wearing the evidence that they did. "Okay, Liam," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I have to go. They're trying to fix it." I hung up before he could reply. The last thread of hope that he would see, that he would understand, snapped. I was well and truly alone in this. Somehow, my bridal party worked a small miracle of damage control, a combination of chalk, salt, and a strategically pinned corsage from my mother's dress managed to cover the worst of the stain, but I knew it was there. It felt like a giant scarlet letter of my own failure, my failure to be accepted by his family, my failure to stand up to his mother, my failure to be believed by my own soon-to-be husband. I felt numb as they fixed my veil and ushered me toward the door. Walking down the aisle was the most surreal experience of my life. The beautiful music, the smiling faces of our friends and family, it all felt like a movie I was watching of someone else's life. I kept my eyes locked on Liam at the end of the aisle. He looked so handsome, so happy, so blissfully unaware of the war that had just been declared. As I got closer, I saw him mouth, "You look beautiful," and I almost broke down right there. Then my eyes flickered to the front row, to Carol. She was dabbing a perfectly dry eye with a lace handkerchief, the very picture of a proud, emotional mother. The smugness was gone, replaced by a serene mask of satisfaction. She had done it, and she was getting away with it. Saying my vows felt like an out-of-body experience. I was promising to love and honor a man who just 10 minutes ago had called me crazy for suspecting what I knew in my soul to be true. The photo session between the ceremony and the reception was torture. "Smile, look in love, a big happy kiss," the photographer chirped, and we obeyed. 2 actors playing the part of a perfect couple. Liam held my hand, whispering how sorry he was about the accident and how we wouldn't let it spoil our day. I just nodded. A hollow smile plastered on my face. The injustice of it all was a heavy, indigestible lump in my stomach. We were given a few minutes in a small private room before our grand entrance to the reception. My bridesmaids came in to help me bustle the dress and touch up my makeup. Liam was off greeting some relatives. I sank into a chair, feeling utterly exhausted. Jess, my maid of honor, sat next to me, scrolling through the footage on her camera. "I got some really great shots of you getting ready," she said, trying to cheer me up. Before, "That's great, Jess," I said listlessly. She kept scrolling, a small smile on her face as she reviewed her work. And then her smile froze. Her eyes widened. She stopped scrolling and rewound a few seconds of footage, her brow furrowed in concentration. Chloe?" she said, her voice a strange whisper. "You need to see this, like, right now." "I really don't want to see footage of the spill, Jess," I said, closing my eyes. "It's not about the spill. It's about what happened 10 seconds before the spill." Her tone made me sit up. I leaned over, and she angled the small camera screen towards me. The video showed Carol entering the bridal suite.
It then showed her walking towards the corner of the room where her sister, Liam's Aunt Karen, was standing, partially obscured by a decorative plant. Carol leaned in, thinking she was having a private, conspiratorial moment, but Jess's camera, with its surprisingly sensitive microphone, was pointed right in their direction. On the screen, I saw my mother-in-law's mouth move, and through the camera's audio, I heard her voice, a low, venomous whisper that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Watch this," Carol whispered. "Just one little stumble. She'll never forget this day. Time to teach her not to mess with my family." Aunt Karen let out a stifled snicker. "Carol, you are wicked," she whispered back, clearly amused. The video then showed Carol turning away from her sister, plastering that big, fake smile on her face, grabbing the glass of wine, and beginning her slow, deliberate walk towards me. I watched it once, then I had Jess play it again. And again. The audio was crystal clear. The intent was undeniable. A wave of something hot and powerful washed through me, searing away the despair and helplessness. It was pure, unadulterated rage, as bright and clear as a bolt of lightning. The victim in me died a swift death, and in her place rose a woman who had just been handed a loaded gun. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was right, and I had the proof. "Oh my God," Jess breathed, looking at me with wide eyes. That monster! We have to show this to Liam right now. He needs to see what she did." An image flashed in my mind, showing the video to Liam privately. Carol would cry. She'd say we doctored it. She'd say it was joking, that it was a sick joke between sisters. She'd twist it, manipulate him, and he, wanting to believe her, probably would. No, a private confrontation was a battle she could win with crocodile tears. A public forum, however? No, I said, my voice dangerously calm. We're not showing it to Liam. I looked at Jess, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. We're showing it to everyone. Jess's jaw dropped. What? The reception, I said, my mind racing, the plan forming with beautiful, crystalline clarity. The big projector screen, the one they're using for the photo slideshow. A slow grin spread across Jess's face as she caught on. "Chloe, you are my hero. They have that slideshow of us as kids and then photos from the engagement party, right?" I asked. "Yeah, the AV guy, Kevin, he's set up in the back corner. He's running it all from his laptop," she confirmed. "Okay," I said, standing up, feeling a surge of adrenaline I hadn't felt all day. "Here is the new plan. You are going to take that memory card. You're going to find Kevin. You're going to tell him the maid of honor has a last-minute surprise video for the bride and groom, a special, candid moment from the morning. You'll say it's short, and it needs to be played right after Liam's brother gives his toast." "And what are you going to do?" Jess asked, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I said, taking a deep breath and smoothing down the front of my stained, beautiful dress, am going to make my grand entrance and be the happiest, most in-love bride anyone has ever seen. My new mother-in-law wants this to be a day I'll never forget, and I'm going to make damn sure she gets her wish. Just then, the door opened and Liam poked his head in. "Ready, beautiful? It's time for our entrance." He smiled. That sweet, loving, oblivious smile. I looked back at him, and for the first time all day, my smile was genuine. It was the smile of a woman who knew a secret. A delicious, explosive secret. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's go have some fun." The doors to the reception hall swung open, and the MC's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause for our brand new Mr. and Mrs. Liam and Chloe." The room erupted in cheers and applause. A wave of warmth and love from our friends and family washed over us. Liam squeezed my hand, his face alight with pure, uncomplicated joy. He leaned in and whispered, "See, everything's perfect now." He had no idea that perfect was about to be obliterated, replaced by a brutal, cleansing truth. As we walked towards the head table, I felt a strange sense of calm descend over me. The rage and adrenaline had cooled. settling into a firm, icy resolve. I was no longer a victim in a ruined dress. I was the director of a one-act play, and the final dramatic scene was about to begin. My eyes scanned the room, the beautiful fairy lights twinkling in the rustic wooden beams of the barn, the tables adorned with flowers, the guests laughing and chatting. My gaze landed on the head table, where Carol was seated, holding court. She was dabbing her eyes again, accepting sympathetic pats on the back for the terrible accident. She looked up, caught my eye, and gave me a small, pitying smile. It was the smile of a victor checking on the vanquished. I just smiled back, a serene, knowing smile that I'm sure she found unsettling. Our first dance was a blur. As Liam twirled me around the dance floor, all I could think about was the tiny memory card in Jess's purse. Over Liam's shoulder, I saw Jess at her table, giving me the slightest, almost imperceptible nod. My heart gave a little thump. The package had been delivered. The bomb was set. All that was left was to light the fuse. Dinner was served, wine was poured, ironically, a beautiful deep red, and the familiar clinking of glasses for speeches began. My father gave a sweet, heartfelt speech that made me cry real tears of love. Liam's brother Michael, the best man, gave a hilarious toast filled with embarrassing childhood stories that had the whole room roaring with laughter. The atmosphere was perfect. It was light, joyful, celebratory. And all the while, Carol sat there beaming, the gracious matriarch of a perfect family, soaking in the love meant for her son. She thought this was her victory party, a celebration of her successful son and her successful sabotage. Then Michael raised his glass. "To Liam and Chloe," he finished. After the applause died down, the MC stepped up. "And now we believe the bride herself would like to say a few words." This was it. Liam squeezed my hand under the table. I stood up and walked to the microphone, feeling 200 pairs of eyes on me. I felt a flicker of nervousness, but then I pictured Carol's triumphant glint, and it solidified into steel in my spine. "Wow," I started, my voice soft and warm. Just wow, seeing all of you here, all the people we love in one room, it means the world to us. I smiled at my parents. To my mom and dad, thank you for giving me a foundation of love and truth, and for teaching me to always stand up for what's right. I then turned to my bridesmaids. To my incredible bridesmaids, especially my maid of honor, Jess, I gave her a meaningful look. Thank you for being my rock, for your support, and for capturing all the memories of the day, some more unexpected than others. Jess raised her glass to me, her eyes glinting. I then turned my gaze to Liam. "And to my husband," I said, and all the love I felt for him, separate from the mess with his mother, poured into my voice. "Liam, you are the kindest, most wonderful man I have ever known. I love you more than words can say, and I cannot wait to build our life together, a life based on honesty, trust, and partnership." Liam's eyes were shining. The room was filled with soft awes. I had them, lulled into a sense of warmth and sincerity. Now for the turn. I shifted my stance slightly, turning my body to better address the head table. "And, of course," I said, my voice taking on a new layer of sweetness, "I absolutely have to give a special thank you to my new mother-in-law, Carol." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her straighten up in her chair, a pleased, self-satisfied smile spreading across her face. She was ready to receive her praise. "Carol has been so involved in this wedding from day one," I continued, letting the sentence hang in the air with just a hint of double meaning that only I could appreciate. "She has taught me so much about the dynamics of family. She has made today so incredibly memorable in ways I couldn't even begin to describe." I could feel the anticipation from her.
She was practically glowing. "In fact," I said, raising my voice slightly to address the whole room, "words really aren't enough to show my appreciation. My maid of honor, Jess, happened to capture a very special, candid moment from this morning while we were getting ready. It was a moment that I think truly captures the spirit of the day and the depth of Carol's character. Kevin," I called out to the AV technician in the back, "I believe you have that surprise video for Carol. Could you please play it for all of us?" A wave of intrigued murmuring went through the crowd. A surprise video tribute? How sweet! Carol placed a hand on her chest, feigning surprise, but she looked utterly delighted, ready for her close-up. Liam smiled at me, thinking I'd done something genuinely thoughtful to mend the fences. The lights in the hall dimmed slightly, and all eyes turned to the massive 10-foot screen behind the head table. The video started. The first 5 seconds were innocent, me laughing with my bridesmaids. Then the scene cut abruptly to the corner of the bridal suite. The camera zoomed in slightly. There was Carol, her back mostly to the camera, talking to her sister, Aunt Karen. The sensitive microphone picked up their audio and it echoed crystal clear through the high-end sound system of the reception hall. "Watch this," Carol's voice hissed. A confused silence began to follow. You could see people frowning, leaning toward each other, whispering, "What was that?" Just one little stumble. The whispering in the crowd stopped. A few people gasped, and I saw Liam's smiling face falter, a look of deep confusion replacing it. She'll never forget this day. Time to teach her not to mess with my family. The silence in the room was now absolute, deafening. It was the kind of silence that's so heavy you can feel it pressing on your skin. Every single guest was frozen, their forks halfway to their mouths, their wine glasses paused in midair. It was magnificent. I calmly turned my head to look at Carol. Her face was a grotesque mask of horror. The color had completely drained from her skin, leaving a pasty gray pallor. Her jaw was slack, her eyes wide with the terror of a cornered animal. She looked at me, then at her sister, then at all the hundreds of accusing eyes staring at her. Then she looked at her son. Liam had been watching the screen, his body rigid. Now he turned his head with excruciating slowness to face his mother. The confusion and disbelief on his face had been replaced by a look of such profound betrayal and cold, quiet fury that it was more terrifying than any shouting could have been. He didn't have to say a word. His expression said it all. I decided it was time for my closing remarks. I leaned back into the microphone, my voice perfectly steady, cutting through the thick, suffocating silence. "So," I said, picking up my champagne flute, "let's all raise a glass. To my mother-in-law, Carol, for making sure our wedding day was truly one of a kind, and for giving us a memory that none of us will ever forget." That broke the spell. A choked sob tore from Carol's throat. She violently shoved her chair back, the legs screeching against the floor, and fled. She didn't walk, she ran, her sister stumbling out of her own chair to chase after her. The room erupted in a cacophony of frantic whispers. Liam finally turned to me, his eyes filled with a storm of emotions. "Chloe, oh my God, I am so sorry. I didn't believe you. How could I not believe you? I am so sorry." I reached out and took his hand. "This is not your fault, Liam," I said, my voice soft again. "But now you see." He nodded, pulling me into a hug, burying his face in my shoulder. "I see," he muffled. "I see everything." Our marriage in that moment was forged into something unbreakable.
After a moment, I pulled back and faced our remaining guests, who were all staring, unsure of what to do. I took the microphone one last time. Well, now that we've taken out the trash, who wants some cake? For a second, there was still stunned silence. Then my maid of honor, Jess, jumped to her feet and screamed, "Yeah!" And the room exploded, not with whispers, but with cheers and applause, louder and more genuine than before. The music swelled back to life. Liam and I cut our wedding cake laughing, and the rest of the night was the most joyous, authentic celebration I could have ever imagined. It wasn't the wedding we had planned, but it was the wedding we needed. It was a celebration of truth, of love, and of the fact that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting everyone see the monster for who they truly are. The fallout was significant. Carol and her sister essentially vanished. Liam insisted we go to therapy together to unpack the years of his mother's manipulation, and he hasn't spoken to her since. As for me, I had my wedding dress professionally framed, stain and all. It hangs in our closet as a reminder that sometimes you have to fight for your own happiness, that truth is always worth fighting for, and that a little bit of cleverly deployed video evidence can be a girl's best friend. So, what do you think? Was I wrong to expose her like that, or was it the ultimate karma? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed the story of a wedding day disaster turned triumphant, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who appreciates a good revenge tale, and make sure you're subscribed for more stories. Thanks for listening.